the Sony PlayStation was Sony's first true foray into the video game console market. Birthed out of a failed relationship with Nintendo, it dominated the 90s, beating out both Sega and Nintendo for market share, exclusive titles, and new IPs. It started a legacy that lasts even to this day with the PlayStation 5. So let's take a look at how it came to be. The Sony PlayStation was first released in Japan on December 3, 1994, followed by a North American release on September 9th in 1995, followed by Europe on September 29th, and November 15th in Australia, both in the same year. It was revolutionary for its time and introduced gamers to many popular franchises such as Crash Bandicoot and Twisted Metal, as well as traditional ones with a new look, such as the Final Fantasy series. So we all know the story, so I won't bore you with too many details about why the PlayStation even exists. But basically, the PlayStation was originally intended to be an add-on for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. Nintendo, in an effort to compete with both Sega and NEC, whose consoles had CD-ROM attachments available, reached out to Sony to help develop the add-on. They had already worked with Sony on the SNES's sound processor, the SPC700, and Sony themselves had a game publishing arm, releasing games for the SNES, Genesis / Sega CD, PC, and others. Plus, they were the co-inventors of the CD, so yeah, it kinda made sense. However, in an utter shock to the gaming industry, especially Sony themselves who literally learned of it when everyone else did, Nintendo publicly announced that they would instead go with Philips to develop the add-on, only for them to scrap the idea altogether. To no surprise, this obviously infuriated Sony, who then decided to use what it learned to develop its own console. It approached Sega to assist, but were turned down, which, as we'll eventually find out, was kind of a bad move on their part, but I digress. So Sony went at it alone, and thus the PlayStation was born. So let's talk about the PlayStation. The PlayStation is a 32-bit console powered by an LSI R3000 CPU running at just under 34 MHz. The CPU also has the COP2 and Math coprocessors on die to help with rendering 3D graphics. It has a separate video processor to handle shaders and textures as well as 2D graphics, though it doesn't have a dedicated 2D processor. Instead, the Geometry Transfer Engine, or GTE, essentially renders the 2D graphics as polygons. It has 3 MB of RAM, 2 for the main system and 1 for video, and it can show up to 16.7 million colors. The audio is handled by the Sony CXD2510, which was probably a successor to the SPC700. Now, being a CD-based console, many games used CD audio, but some still used more traditional MIDI-type music. In any case, it's a 16-bit processor that can handle up to 24 channels at 44.1 kHz. The original release also had both a parallel port and a serial port, though the parallel port would eventually be removed in later revisions. The PlayStation was also revolutionary with regards to the controllers. Borrowing the design from its SNES roots, it has a D-pad, though not in a traditional sense since Nintendo still had a patent on that. Start and select buttons as well as 4 face buttons labeled as square, triangle, circle, and X or crossed, depending on who you ask, as opposed to the traditional letters like A, B, C, D, or A, B, X, Y. It also featured shoulder buttons, but instead of just an L and R, they also added L2 and R2. Revisions to the controller would add dual thumbsticks labeled as L3 and R3 and giving it the name DualShock. These would be the standard on later revisions of the PSOne as well as future Sony consoles. The PlayStation had a large library of games, just under 8,000 by some estimates, from both first and third parties, including a controversial move by Squaresoft, now Square Enix, to exclusively publish Final Fantasy games on Sony's consoles going forward. This would later change. Up until then, Square only published games on Nintendo consoles. However, Nintendo's insistence to stick with cartridges for the N64 is what sealed the deal, since CDs had more space and were cheaper to produce. Even then, Final Fantasy VII still came on 3 CDs. Other notable titles include Crash Bandicoot, the PlayStation's unofficial official mascot, Ridge Racer, and Loaded, a top-down run-and-gun with an amazing soundtrack. Seriously, if you haven't played this game yet, pick it up. Of course, you had your various sports titles and RPGs as well. In fact, so many RPGs were being published on the PlayStation that it took that crown away from Nintendo, which up until that point had all the good RPGs. There were several revisions of the PlayStation, mainly to reduce costs by removing components that were no longer needed, namely the traditional AV port, the one with RCA jacks, the parallel port, as well as the final release of the PlayStation, known as the PSOne, a small cost-reduced version of the console. Now this wasn't unusual in the gaming industry, with both Nintendo and Sega having done that themselves, with the NES Junior, the SNES Junior, the Master System 2, the Genesis 2, and the Genesis 3. Sony PlayStation was then superseded by the PlayStation 2, which as of the time of this video is the best-selling home console of all time. So, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and unbox this, see how it would have came originally, and we'll give it a test to see if it works. Alright, so obviously seal is broken because it's been used, but let's take a look at the back of the box actually real quick. These are just different games that were around at the time, you know, give people an idea of what they can expect. Also shows you some of the basic specs, double speed CD-ROM drive, custom multiple processors, etc, etc, etc. We went over that already. So let's go ahead and take a look at the side. And on the side here, see it comes with a console, controller, AV cables, and a power cable. And of course manuals and all that stuff. So it's not completely exactly as it would be. These would be wrapped in like the foam bag type material. Here's the controller. It's in good shape, clean. That's good. Power cable. Again, it would not come like this. It would be in a plastic bag. Same thing with these AV cables. But it's nice to have some official Sony ones. But of course, what we're interested in is what's inside. And this is in the original foam bag wrapping. And there she is. Pretty clean, not yellowed, fortunately. Opens up just fine. Clean inside here. Kind of hard to see with the flap in the way, but 2 controller ports, memory card ports, ventilation on both sides, and in the rear we've got the serial port, the parallel port, and the AV multi-out, as well as your AC in. There was something else in the box. In the box are important safeguards. A hint line. This was very popular for consoles in the late 80s and 90s. If you were struggling with a game, you can call the tip line. Nintendo had one, Sega had one. So Sony had to have their own too. The warranty information. The owner's manual, which is pretty cool to have. As well as subscription to PlayStation Underground, which is like a just trials of games. Doubt that this still works, but that's pretty cool. There's also this little mini catalog that kind of goes over the games that are out during this time. Same ones, it seems, as on the back of the box. So pretty cool. And last but not least, the sampler CD. I'm pretty sure anyone that bought a PlayStation at that time got one of these and played the crap out of all the demos. This one's volume 5. When I had my original PlayStation, it was volume 1. I forget what games are on there. Maybe I can look them up and see, but this came with Game Day 98, Crap of the Rapper, Cool Borders 2, and Intelligent Cube. So it's cool that this is still here. In fact, has this been opened and played? Let's find out. Yeah, there's fingerprints on there. And some minor scuffs, but it's not bad. It's in good shape. Like I said, everyone played the demo disc. So what I'm gonna have to do is hook this up, and I'm probably gonna hook it up over on the CRT over there because it's going to look like crap on here. This is the PS3 playing PSOne in emulation mode. So I'll hook it up to the CRT and we'll see if this sucker works. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, there's going to be another video where I go ahead and take this apart and try to figure out what's wrong with it. But even though it is working and everything, it looks clean, I'm going to give it a wiping down afterwards and everything. Alright, let's give this a test. Alright, I turned the lights off to make it a little easier to see the screen. Turning it on. Oh, probably should turn the TV on too. And switch to the right input. Well, that's a lot of noise. That's coming through on camera. Let me see if I can fix that. Alright, so I couldn't do much about the noise, so I lowered the volume. Hopefully it won't come through on camera anymore. Let's go ahead and try Ridge Racer. See if it at least reads discs. Success. Yeah, this is a noisy CRT. Probably needs to be adjusted and tweaked and all of that, but I don't necessarily have the skills or the tools to do it, so... No, we want the 60 frames per second version. Yeah, that's right. But it seems to be playing games so far. And it at least plays Ridge Racer just fine. And this is working fine, but let's see what's on this sampler disc.
If you haven't subscribed to the PlayStation Underground yet, here's what you've been missing.
So you have playable game demos on here as well as, I think, videos. Or maybe it's all demos, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've had to actually, looks like they do have multiple demos on here other than what's advertised. Oh no, Tomb Raider is one of them, never mind. That didn't sound good. game is dark on screen too. I don't know if I just have to adjust the tube or what. But this seems to be fine. Is there a way to return to... Or do I have to reboot or something? I guess I can't go back. So they say again that we've got Crash Bandicoot 2, Cool Borders 2, Tomb Raider 2, NHL Face-Off 98, NFL Game Day 98, Parappa the Rapper, Cool Borders 2, and Intelligent Cube. But that's all that it says it's on here, but then it's got 12 potential options here. I don't think Star Wars Masters was listed. Yeah, so apparently they've got multiple different game demos on here. Let's go back. So, Parappa the Rapper, Tomb Raider 2, Armored Core, Cool Borders 2, Crash Bandicoot 2, NHL Face-Off 98, Game Day 98, Star Wars Masters, Intelligent Cube, Jet Moto 2, Gran Turismo, and Gex 2. Now, this is just a video, apparently. That's just a video of Gex 2. Jet Moto 2 is just a video. So you have 9 demos on here and 3 videos. Oh, 10 demos, sorry. And 2 videos. Pretty cool. Let's wrap this video up. Actually, I just noticed something. I hit the power button. It did not turn off. Seems like the power button's a little stuck. Looks like we're going to have to take this apart after all, at least to get the power button unstuck. So it seems like unless you hit it dead center, it gets stuck. Or at least from the left side, it doesn't click in all the way, or the top. Here it seems fine. Like I said, eject, open, what have you, is working. So let's take it apart and see if we just need to clean some grime up or what. There should just be these 6 screws. I've never taken one of these apart before, so... Now, the power supply is exposed on the PlayStation 1s, although a good trick to try to discharge it is just to turn the power button on while it's unplugged. The power light should flash for like a second or so, and then the power should be drained, or at the very least, there's so little power that it shouldn't be a risk. But we'll set this to the side for now. Take a look at the power button, which is right here. Seems to be fine. It doesn't seem to get stuck now, so I'm wondering if it just wasn't maybe... Oh, there's a little bit. I'm wondering if it's just not an alignment issue. I guess this feels fine, not sure. I guess I could always spray some deoxin in there just in case. But this seems fine otherwise. Carefully. Well, the button itself looks clean. Spring has tension. And the housing itself looks clean too, so I don't know, it could just be a manufactured defect that after so many years is manifesting itself. I mean, I don't see... Yeah, I mean, it looks fine, right? You guys don't see anything. Spring looks okay. And like I said, this looks okay too. I mean, I'll clean the area up just in case. Like I said, I'll put a little bit of deoxit in. So first I'll just start with the power button. We'll probably just zip through this part. And then the housing next. Might as well. Spring doesn't need to be cleaned at all, it's fine. But what we're going to do next, and I decided to pour some deoxit in this dropper bottle. That way I can carefully control, to an extent at least, how much I apply. And hopefully that'll be enough. Since we got this open up, it's really clean in here. It's almost like it hasn't been used much at all. I know it hasn't been used much for the past few years apparently. I mean, I could take it apart further, but there's no need right now. I don't see any reason to. Capacitors look like they're in great shape, but then again, I'm not surprised. It's a Sony product. They're going to use the good stuff, of course. Looks like they're using Nichicons. But yeah, this is in good shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this thing back together. And test out that power button one more time. And there we go. Hopefully that'll do it. I'll test it real quick and let you guys know. Yeah, it worked great. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. So I'm really glad that the PlayStation works overall. The sticky power button had me a little concerned, but not too much anymore now that I know that it's not that big of a deal. If it does start to stick, I just have to remember to try to hit it dead on. So yeah, I'm glad I've got this in my collection now. I mean, I do have the PSOne, the mini version of the PlayStation that Sony released towards the end of its lifespan, and I can't zoom in anymore, but it's right there. And that one works too, and I'll probably just leave that one hooked up to my CRT because of the space constraints I have with that special setup that I did. So this will probably just end up being a display piece unless the PSOne ends up, you know, biting the dust or anything like that. And then in which case this will end up becoming my primary quote-unquote PlayStation if I want to play on the CRT. Now again, I do have the PS2, which is hardware compatible with the PS1. PS2 only connects using either AV or component. I do have a component to HDMI converter that's supposed to be really low latency, so we'll see about that in case I want to play on this guy right there. And when I want to play on a CRT, well, like I said, I'll just on the PS1 over there. So what did you guys think of this video? If you like it, hit the thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so, although there's never any obligation, although I do appreciate it. If you didn't like the video, please hit the thumbs down, but leave a reason below in the comments section as to why, so that I can try to use that to help things going forward. Thanks all, and I'll catch you later.